This story is not about success. It's about the moment before success, when giving up felt logical. Pause, soft ambient sound. In a quiet town where ambition was a foreign language, a young woman named Maya ran a small, forgotten bookstore. It wasn't a business, it was a sanctuary of stories she desperately hoped others would discover. She had no inheritance, no influential network, no map to follow. Every morning, the first rays of sunlight found her already at work, dusting shelves filled with books no one seemed to want. She didn't do it for the love of early mornings. She did it because the silence of failure was deafening, and the only way to combat it was with the sound of her own quiet effort. Neighbors would see her through the large front window, arranging and rearranging the same displays, a solitary figure in a sea of paper and ink. What they didn't see was the battle raging within her. They couldn't feel the erosion of her spirit, the slow chipping away at the foundation of her dream. Hard work, she learned, doesn't just exhaust your muscles. It tests the very core of your belief, asking you, day after day, if the fight is still worth it. It's a silent, internal negotiation where doubt is a very persuasive debater. It whispers that practicality is smarter than passion, that retreat is a sign of wisdom, not weakness. One rainy Tuesday night, the store was empty, as it often was. Maya sat behind the worn wooden counter, her phone lying face up beside her, a dark, silent mirror reflecting the ceiling lights. No new messages, no online orders, no words of encouragement from a world that seemed to have forgotten she existed. The stack of unpaid bills on her desk seemed to grow taller by the hour, a monument to her struggle. The rent was a looming giant, food a dwindling resource, and the currency of hope had become an extravagance she could no longer afford. In the crushing stillness, broken only by the rhythmic drumming of rain against the glass, she bowed her head and whispered into the empty space, a prayer that was more of a surrender. God, if this is all my life is meant to be, I don't think I can do this anymore. I'm just so tired. That was the moment. It wasn't a moment of triumph. It wasn't the turning point where a miracle swooped in to save the day. It was the moment of absolute vulnerability, the rock bottom where the only thing left to hold onto was the debris of her shattered conviction. This was the precipice, where the fall seemed inevitable and the climb back up impossible. The next morning, the sun broke through the clouds, but inside Maya, the storm had not yet passed. She stood before her reflection, seeing not a fighter, but a survivor running on fumes. Two paths stretched out before her, stark and clear. The first was the path of quiet surrender. She could lock the door for the last time, sell the remaining books for a fraction of their worth, and fade back into the predictable rhythm of a life without this dream. It was the path everyone expected, the logical conclusion to a noble but failed experiment. The second path was one of defiant continuation. To keep showing up, to keep dusting the shelves, to keep believing in the magic of stories, even if her only audience was herself. It was the illogical, irrational, and incredibly difficult choice. No grand event followed. No wealthy benefactor walked in and bought the entire store. No viral social media post suddenly made her famous. There was no applause, no external validation, just the quiet, internal click of a decision being made. It was a choice born not from a sudden burst of motivation, but from a deep, stubborn refusal to let the story end this way. Most lives don't find their new direction in a flash of inspiration. They are rerouted by the sheer, unglamorous force of stubborn consistency, the commitment to take one more step when every fiber of your being is screaming for you to stop. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months, and the months piled up into years of the same quiet routine. The scenery outside the bookstore window changed with the seasons, but inside, the struggle remained a constant. Some of the people who had initially offered fleeting words of support now looked at her with a mixture of pity and confusion. Others openly mocked her persistence, calling it a foolish waste of time. Friends who couldn't understand her unwavering dedication slowly drifted away, their absence leaving another layer of silence in the already quiet store. But in the midst of the doubt and the isolation, something fundamental had shifted within Maya. She had stopped waiting to feel confident. She stopped needing permission from the world to believe in her own vision. She just moved, driven by a discipline that had long since replaced her fleeting motivation. And then, slowly, so slowly it was almost imperceptible at first, things began to change. A customer who bought one book came back for another, bringing a friend. A local book club decided to hold a meeting in her cozy corner. An online review praised the store's unique charm. It wasn't a floodgate opening, it was a slow, steady trickle. But for the first time in a long time, the trickle was flowing in, not out. Results were finally following her relentless, uncelebrated effort. Today, if you visit that small town, you'll find a thriving bookstore at its heart, a vibrant hub where people gather, connect, and lose themselves in stories. The people who once pitied her now refer to Maya as lucky. They talk about her overnight success. But luck wasn't the force that unlocked the door before sunrise every morning for years. Luck didn't pay the bills with a part-time job when the store made nothing. Luck didn't stand its ground when motivation packed its bags and left without a goodbye. And luck certainly didn't choose the lonely path of discipline when the comfortable road of quitting was wide open. Success is not the grand performance on the main stage. It's the sum of 1,000 rehearsals in an empty room, the quiet work that happens when nobody is watching. This story isn't really about Maya or her bookstore. It's about you. It's about the version of you that is exhausted from trying, the version of you that feels completely invisible to the world, the version of you that, despite it all, wakes up and chooses to keep going anyway. Don't quit on a life you haven't fully lived yet.